Okay, Mark, we're back here with Mark, Tomy, and he just filled out his release form that we filled out, and he's brought the documents with me. Read this one paragraph right here.
I state for the record I have personal knowledge of the facts set forth herein, which I know to be true and correct, except as those matters vary and stated as based upon information and belief, as do those matters I believe them to be true and correct as well. If called as a witness, I would completely testify with respect therein.
Okay, then you agree to that?
Yes, sir.
You signed it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we have some documents here, which I have great concern about. I think the people of the United States should have. It shows influence peddling by a member of the National Security Agency, a high-ranking person, his sister, using her office to influence the judge's decisions and to take custody of his ailing mother. And
I have further concerns, George, because
you go ahead and explain.
In these writs of certiorari, which I filed with the Court of Appeals, once I found out about this, I put an addendum to it to state that.
For the record, which Court of Appeals is writs of certiorari?
The Court of Appeals, Maryland Court.
Maryland Court of Appeals. Okay.
This is above the Court of Special Appeals. When I discovered what had been done, I had an addendum or an addition to the writ of certiorari I'd filed. It was the whole writ was denied as not having importance to the public, which to me, this kind of influence peddling by my sister, the fact that the rules of procedure were ignored by Andrew Fury in the civil proceeding, and the fact that everyone's getting older and that your rights into following the proper laws of this country and state are being ignored here, it should be totally important to the public. There should be no question this is important to the public. But I went ahead and filed from here.
Okay, hold it now. Since I've got a case in the United States Supreme Court, okay, right now pending, I've got to file my brief on the 28th day, by the 28th of February.
Yes, sir.
And the singular question, one of the two questions I'm asking is, does an unsigned order from an appellate court which the court refuses to authenticate or validate have any force and effect by law?
I question that too, George, because I have multiple ones myself.
I need just, do you have any of these such orders?
I have multiple ones. All this file and every file, I mean, they're constantly
Have
in
you
here.
ever gotten a signed order from the appellate court, from anybody?
Here's one order right here. Judge Peter Krauser.
Rubber stamp. Mr. Krauser, your rubber stamp's being used illegally. I don't know if it's illegally or for whatever, but it's time that your court answers to these criminal acts of issuing unsigned orders. So,
but as you know, I've stated, I've gone farther with this. I've gone to the Supreme Court and again questioned this
U.S.
now.
Supreme Court?
Yes, sir.
I would like that case number so that I can reference it and do research.
I don't have it here with me, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, no problem. We will follow up next week.
But in that case, I brought up the fact that throughout my mother's case, she was happy at home when these people intruded. They took away her life. They'd taken away her assets. She already made her decisions legally. And there's a precedent was set in the courts that even if you're lucid only at the time you're making these decisions, they should be followed upon because this is your final decisions for the future of you and your assets. These were ignored in my mother's case, and she was more than competent, attested to by her neurologist. There's been a lot of other more irregularities I could point out here, but if you go through and look at these cases, you'll find that eldercare law has been totally ignored. Rules of procedure have been totally ignored, and about half a dozen civil rights, including the right to buy, sell, convey, transfer, and inherit property, which my mother had a due right to do, and her choice has been denied. And I've lost everything I've owned just about. They're still coming after me with a very big judgment. When I filed this civil suit, I asked for an injunction to protect the property because they were going to auction on a Friday. When I handed the paperwork to them, instead of auctioning it, they then, quote, pre-sold it and are coming after me for the difference in the mortgage, saying that they needed to finalize the sale. By writ of pendente, I should have a cloud over this while I'm pending litigation to protect it. There's many things that are irregularities here. I hope that the public will look and realize that they have elderly, we're all getting older, and our rights need to be protected, both as elder care and civil rights.
Okay, well I'm looking at these documents you've got here, and I really want you to explain, and I want you to, in a manner. I'm very concerned that your sister's using NSA time, NSA influence, and NSA resources in this fight.
The sad part is the NSA has never realized the how far she's gone. I mean, I try to stay out of my sister's business. She was dating a gentleman for 30 years who also worked for the NSA. Long before anyone, I think, is aware of it, she was dragging my mother up with her to Westminster, to the Amish market up there, to meet her boss, who was a married man. My mother was getting an attitude towards her current boyfriend over this. I understand that the NSA basically gave her boss 3 months off without pay and almost fired her over this incident, but they then take no interest in the fact she's misusing her office, purging herself in court, using her office to hide behind. They take no interest in that. They're more worried about her personal affairs in the office than this kind of thing. They're more worried about that she divulged a national secret than misusing her office to influence and unfairly take away my mother's rights to how she wanted to delve out her property, how she wanted to live. Everyone's ignored my mother's lifestyle. When she was with us, she was going to buffets, going to family dinners. We were taking her out to get physical therapy at the local physical therapy place to help her with her gait. She had access to the best medical care. We had special diet, and we were reciting games and dates and things with her and doing puzzles, making her read, because this is what her neurologist asked for. Under the current care, she gets none of that, and my mother's being denied everything she wanted. She had a lifestyle. She was going to church, Bible study. They ripped her from her home, threw her in a mental institution to keep her silenced, and then they've taken control of it. Judge Jacobowski's behind it. She ignores Eldercare law about my mother having the proper advocate in the first place and how she was grabbed. They then have ignored the proper care of my mother and her assets to everyone's detriment. I'm the executor and main beneficiary of this will. They've hidden the annual accounting for me. By law, they're supposed to give me an annual accounting. They've hid what they've done with these assets. They're trying to deplete them and make sure myself and my children never get what my mother wanted us to have. It's a travesty of justice to see the laws perverse this way and people with political influence being able to take that influence and use it in a manner to deny regular citizens, including my mother, their legal rights. And I hope there's people out there that take an interest and realize they're also at risk because they're also getting old. If they can do it to my mother, they can do it to them.
Mark, thank you very much for being with us today.
George, thank you for taking time for me.
I want to invite you. I think that this is next week. I would like you to see if you can meet with me on Capitol Hill.
Sir, that's not a problem.
We will go around and knock on the doors of our federal representatives in the state and Senate, and the House and the Senate.
I'll be honest, George, my goal is to hopefully see my mother breathe free air before she dies, and then after that, put legislation in her name on a federal level to see that the state and local governments honor everybody's civil and their elder care laws that were put in place to protect them, because we need federal legislation to guarantee those protections, because right now the local government, the state governments ignore it if they want to. We need federal legislation. I want to honor my mother for her sacrifice, which she put through. She's a World War II veteran. My father fought for this country to allow these people to have the freedoms to misuse their laws now. And it's wrong what's happened. It's wrong. My mother sacrificed a lot in her lifetime. She deserves better than this. Every citizen deserves better than this.
And it all comes down to the breakdown of our society, our judicial system, and
there's no checks and balances.
There's no checks and balances. There's no,
it goes back to what Patrick Henry was afraid of when George Washington and Thomas Jefferson proposed a strong federalist government. He was fearful for the individual's rights. The Bill of Rights and the amendments to the Constitution were supposed to protect us with civil rights. It's fine, they're out there, but nobody's honoring them. Nobody's obeying these laws. So what good is our democracy? We tell other countries that you should have a democracy like us, but ours is perverse right now. We need to clean up our own house before we go out and tell others.
Well, you couldn't have said it better than nobody could have said it better than that and wound this up, because that is an absolute fabulous winding up. I mean, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin said the basic same thing on the steps of the Philadelphia once this declaration was signed. They stood outside and said, one said to the other that the we have put in place now a new government of the people, by the people, and for the people. A government that has an executive branch that we have checks and balances on.
George,
A legislative branch that we have checks and balances on. And a judicial branch that we do not have checks and balances on. I fear that we will become a nation of judicial tyranny, and I think your statement just shows just another example of what happened here today.
well, I hope another thing that comes out of this. I hope that our educators start teaching our children real history and full history, because history repeats itself, and if they don't learn the truth of the history, they're never going to have a strong government here, one that respects people's rights as was intended from the beginning. We need our history.
Well, I thank you, and
Our
I'll be in
education.
touch with you.
Thank you, sir.
And next week, as soon as I get this up on the net, I want it up on the net. On
More
so
people
that,
hear about
so
it, the
that
better.
when we visit the members of the Congress and the Senate, and we visit, we don't have to take them with a whole bunch of stuff. We just take and say, listen, if you want to go, here it is. It's here for you to see. And I'm not going to cut any of these interviews. I'm going to put them in.
Anyone that wants to see my documents and wants to see how the laws were broken, I have nothing to hide, and I would be glad to show anyone very clearly how eldercare laws, rules of procedure, and civil rights have been trumped in this case, and I'm sure others of mine have.
And it's happening all over the state of Maryland,
Scary.
repeatedly, day after day after day. So
I'm afraid Maryland isn't the only place, George.
it's all over the country. I've got,
Sad.
a matter of fact, I'm going to tag this movie with, I have a segment that was done on Fox 5 News in New York. It showed how attorneys and family members get together, the wealthy take over, and there's no overcare, there's no legal oversight in the eldercare industry.
Well, that's true. My mother stated to this lawyer, my sister had more than she needed. She wanted these things left for my children. My sister had no children. Assets that were shared with my children by my parents because they helped raise my children. And all this has been denied. For what? It's wasted. This money's been thrown away, not to the benefit of my mother, because she get piss poor care in these places. Excuse my language.
I'm sure.
George, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very
Anything
much.